This is the Film Symbologist. Welcome to the 23rd episode of the Prometheus analysis series, where I delve into Ridley Scott's 2012 science fiction film. In this video, I will explore why the engineers were planning to bring the black goo to Earth, and what they were hoping to accomplish by doing so. While this topic has been discussed by many others, and the broad strokes of what the engineers plan to do should be fairly obvious, hopefully I will be able to offer some new insight into their plan. If you haven't seen previous installments in the series, I suggest checking those out. For early access to new videos and to help support the creation of new content, consider becoming a member of the Film Symbologist YouTube or Patreon. Links are in the video description. When Milburn and Fifield are stuck in the pyramid during the Silica storm, the Prometheus ship's sensors intermittently detect an unknown life form somewhere near the domed structure. The next day, David investigates the signal by traveling down a long hallway beneath the surface of the moon, which leads to an additional set of chambers, including a cargo bay filled with urns. David watches holographic recordings of the engineers, which show the android how to operate the control center. It turns out that this set of chambers are part of a juggernaut ship, and it appears that the engineers were planning to travel to Earth, which David later discloses to Shaw. Apparently, the engineers on LV-223 were planning to bring the black goo to Earth, approximately 2,000 years prior to the Prometheus expedition's arrival on the moon. But why?
This ship is taking off!
What?
What the hell is she talking about?
You can't let it leave! You have to stop it! It's carrying death! It's headed for Earth!
According to Shaw, the engineers wanted to bring death to Earth, delivered in the form of urns filled with black goo. But as previously discussed, does the black goo really bring instant death? Doesn't the goo make the creatures it comes into contact with bigger, stronger, and faster? Doesn't the goo increase Holloway's virility and overcome Shaw's infertility to help bring a form of life, not death, into existence? From the LV-223 engineer's perspective, the black goo may be a gift to mankind, an aid that improves our fitness for survival. So why would the engineers want to accelerate humanity's development and liberate us from the burden of self-consciousness? One reason is that doing so might be the key to liberating the engineers from their responsibility to man. It seems that the engineers, or at least one faction of engineers, regularly visited Earth throughout mankind's early development, and they imparted knowledge, lessons, and warnings to our ancestors, usually at the heights of these civilizations before their falls. Perhaps a group of engineers no longer wanted to be responsible for caring for mankind, so they rebelled and settled a rival colony on LV-223, where they could manufacture a developmental accelerant and plan one more visit to Earth to give humanity one final gift, after which mankind would fully develop and no longer be dependent upon angels, gods, or engineers. And what did the beings on LV-223 imagine as humanity's fully developed form? I think we have to assume that the engineers were planning to turn Earth's human population into deacon-like xenomorph creatures using the black goo. From mankind's perspective, the contents of the urns may feel like Zeus's punishment of man with Pandora and her jars of evil. From the deacon's perspective, the black goo may seem like a gift of life and fire from a Promethean creator god. To the engineers, the goo may bring a welcome end to mankind's existential suffering by molding the clay that is man into a new creature, putting our ancestors to a higher purpose. That higher purpose might be to create an army of beings capable of fighting and defeating the LV-223 engineers' rivals. But why deacon-like creatures? Is it just because the filmmakers thought the xenomorph was tired and lame and wanted a new, cooler-looking monster? Possibly. but it may have been for another reason as well. According to one interpretation of the mural on the ceiling of the ampule room, ovomorph eggs already exist and predate the events of the film. Perhaps David learned about creating facehugger eggs, as we see in Covenant, from the information he gathered from the structures on LV-223. In Prometheus, the black goo, when used in certain ways, seems to create a deacon. In addition to its larger size, another difference between the deacon and the traditional xenomorph is that the xenomorph cannot be facehugged, but perhaps the deacon can. At least that's what the ceiling mural implies. It may have been the case that an army of deacons wasn't the engineers' ultimate plan, and the black goo may not have been their final delivery for Earth. After creating the deacons, the engineers may have planned to bring ovomorph eggs to Earth to facehug the deacons and create an even more formidable opponent to fight the cloaked engineer faction. In episode 21, I argued that the engineer in the opening scene was creating a new, unknown being whose appearance the audience is free to speculate about. The idea that a deacon creature might be capable of being facehugged offers another opportunity for creative types and artists to imagine what kind of chestburster and xenomorph-like creature would emerge from the torso of a face-hugged deacon. If correct, this offers one possible explanation for the derelict ship from 1979's Alien. Perhaps it was stationed on LV-223 when the so-called outbreak occurred, and the pilot got infected or face-hugged, and when the facehugger detached and the engineer regained consciousness, he attempted to depart for Earth, but was forced to land on LV-426 as the chestburster was emerging, thus leaving the scene that the crew of the Nostromo eventually discovers. If the LV-223 engineers ultimately wanted to create something capable of destroying their enemies, why involve mankind at all? Why not just unleash the black goo on themselves to create deacon-like creatures? Well, there may be no better host for incubating this army than human beings. The engineers on LV-223 may not possess the types of eggs that are needed to create the deacon. Adult human females may be in possession of the eggs necessary for the engineer's experiment. Men may serve as the perfect host for creating Fifield and Holloway-like monsters, who will impregnate women with black goo-infected sperm to create trilobites and deacons. This goo is even potent enough to overcome infertility in women like Shaw. Even a bad seed can apparently take root in poor soil, but barren ground will always produce trees that bear bad fruit, regardless of the seed. Imagery of seeds and eggs are replete throughout the Alien franchise. In 1979's installment, the facehugger needs the egg and a host. The chestburster needs to incubate within an existing life form. In Alien Romulus, we see the facehuggers contained within synthetic sacs in a climate-controlled lab. We're shown the cocoon a chestburster incubates within to become a full-grown xenomorph. And we see the cocoon a fully developed xenomorph creates to survive harsh environments. In Prometheus, the goos are seeded into hosts. Holloway's sperm impregnates Shaw's egg. The trilobite is born with a placental sac. It latches onto the engineer. And a proto-ovomorph is born from within the engineer, alongside the deacon-like creature. The seed in the egg is the knowledge contained within the forbidden fruit that is attained by the likes of Kane, Holloway, Navarro, and many others throughout the franchise's history. The LV-223 engineers are not the only ones to bear bad fruit. David, with his artificial creation, is another example of rotten fruit. But even with her natural birth, so is Vickers. In a sense, Wayland was a bad seed, incapable of bearing good fruit. It is far more difficult to generate good fruit than it is to bear bad fruit. And one of the primary seeds to which human beings are hosts are ideas. As Swiss psychiatrist and psychotherapist Carl Jung once said, people don't have ideas. Ideas have people. If that's the case, then what kind of host are you? One where bad ideas thrive and good ideas are squandered? Or are you the kind of host that resists bad ideas and allows good ideas to flourish? What characterizes a mind and body that acts as a barren ground incapable of bearing good fruit? Being too open and susceptible to outside influence? Being too closed off to new ideas and new ways of thinking and behaving? If so, there's certainly plenty of bad soil among Prometheus's characters and audience. In a future video, I will discuss what the film's story considers to be the characteristics of a bad seed. In a previous video, I discussed Mary Shelley's gothic horror novel Frankenstein, where a mad scientist seeks to demonstrate his mastery over the secrets of life and death by reanimating dead matter in order to create an amazing creature. Instead, he ends up creating a being that he finds monstrous. In Ridley Scott's film, the engineer's black goo interacts with humans to produce both monsters like Fifield and idolized beings like the Deacon. In Greek mythology, Prometheus advances human development. His brother Epimetheus marries the first woman, Pandora, and their supreme leader, Zeus, mates with many women to create demigods such as Heracles, who were often admired and revered in ancient Greece. As discussed in previous videos, Greek gods like Zeus routinely doled out punishment to those who rebelled against the gods, violated the natural order, or exhibited weak character traits. For instance, according to at least one mythological tradition, Asclepius, the demigod of medicine who wields a rod wrapped with a serpent, which is still used as a symbol for emergency medical services today, is struck down by Zeus for resurrecting the dead in defiance of natural laws. In other myths, the gods punish rebellion, hubris, and vulnerability. While inebriation was often celebrated in ancient Athens, it also often led to reckless and careless behavior that was ripe for punishment. In Ridley Scott's Prometheus, a group of scientists attempt to reanimate a severed engineer's head. Soon after, several crew members are drunken or otherwise inebriated and acting entitled and disrespectful, all of which leads to calamity, including a serpentine creature wrapping itself around Milburn's stiffening body, Fifield and Holloway consuming the pathogenic agent and transforming, and Shaw birthing a monster. If this was a preview of the engineer's plan for Earth, I think it's safe to say that it's a good thing this gift wasn't delivered. In the next video in the series, I will take a look at Prometheus in a way that will hopefully help to connect disparate elements of the film together and bring some coherence to the overarching story being told. If you enjoy content like this, like the video, comment down below, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. For early access to new videos and to help support the creation of new content, consider becoming a member of YouTube and Patreon. Links are in the video description. This is the Film Symbologist. Thanks for watching.